Well, as always, I invite people who move the needle in our beautiful land, South Africa. These are people who have great impact. They come up with interesting ideas, they generate knowledge, and it is useful to engage them, I believe. Now, in the world of arts, one of the leading thespians, and not just for a couple of weeks or a month or a couple of years, but for decades, is a good friend of mine, a leading thespian, Mr. Sello Maake, who's been around the block quite a few times. That he's found time to be with me is in itself a miracle of its own that I welcome. But miracles happen every day, don't they?
They do, but here it is, it's happening. And I think this is a miracle that has been long overdue.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, there's many stories, maybe some will come up in our conversation of how we interacted over the years.
Exactly.
As, for lack of a word, contemporaries in our beautiful city of Joburg. But let me start first with the most recent work that you did on Bloke Modise and his Native American friend. That was staged at the University of Johannesburg recently.
Yes.
Quite a remarkable piece of work that you did there.
Yeah.
And you were trying to tell a story which tells other stories within the South African and African American relationships. Tell me about the evolution of that.
That play came about when I learned about the camaraderie between Bloke Modise and Langston Hughes. When Spew and I did The House of Truth, which is a bioplay on Kentemba. And he sort of hinted that, hey man, when he was in the US, he went to, I think, the Yale University. And he was actually, going to research the camaraderie between Langston Hughes and Eskia Mpatlele. And when he was there, as he was reading through their communication, they're constantly mentioning Bloke, both of them, And he went and said, hey man, is there any communication between Bloke and Langston Hughes? And they gave him a huge file. And he started reading it. He almost missed his train going back to New York. And that's when, he came about with the idea of devising a play around the letter correspondence between Bloke Modise and Langston Hughes.
Sure.
And, I think that in itself, the play basically just captures the connection between the U.S. and South Africa. And the thing about it actually even goes beyond the 60s. Because if you think of people like Pixley Kaseme, who attended the University of Columbia, John Langalibalele Dube, who also I think he is at the Tuskegee University or whatever. Yes,
I think he went there before. I'm not sure, but I think
so basically the African American connection, and also even because even in the story, then we discovered that there was also a connection between Chief Albert Luthuli and Martin Luther King, where they actually wrote a joint letter, in protest of what was happening to black people. So I think the connection that we have as South Africans with African American goes way, way, way beyond.
Sure.
And I think it is also, for me, it was telling a story that like sometimes when we say we are telling authentic stories have to do with us being at our debased level, which means just township life.
Yes.
And that's what is supposed to be just authentic about us. And whereas being authentic, what is authentic about us has got different levels. There is the street culture, there is the home culture, and beyond the home culture, there are different social strata.
Sure.
You grow up. I grew up having people like the father of Ntatedi Kgang Moseneke as my principal. You know what I mean?
And it means something. It should come from
exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you realize when you were growing up in an environment that carried itself in a certain grace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, having attended the show, observed, and knowing a little bit of what you've just told us now, I'm thinking of what happened post that. For instance, with people like Harry Belafonte, assisting Miriam
Makeba.
By extension, assisting Brahim Masekela.
Exactly.
Brakafa Semenya, Letambulu, and the impact that then they had on the global culture.
I must share something with you. You know, there's I think it was 1975. I'm 15 years old, nice teenager. And I take my girlfriend to the movies, you know, and we go and watch a movie called Warm December, you know, with Sidney Poitier.
Where did you watch the movie?
At the A2 Cinema.
Okay,
yeah. I'm taking my girlfriend there. In fact, that is the movie that taught me how to kiss. Because, I mean, if you saw the kiss that... who was Sidney Poitier was having with this beautiful girl. I can't remember the actress's name. Oh man!
Said, I'm going for it.
I took lessons there.
So from then on,
but
I'm this cool guy.
In that movie, there is a restaurant scene where Ausleta and a group of South African musicians are singing in that restaurant where Sidney Poitier has taken this girl and they're singing Bahleli bonke tilongweni, bahleli bonke kwanqunqu. So now here you are watching a movie and it is an American movie. And then you experience in South Africa,
the voice of your people.
Yes, you know.
Yeah.
And then
and in the early 70s,
in the early 70s, 75.
Before television, I think
before
the point
television,
has got to be made.
Yes. You know, and I was like, wow, you know. And I remember when I told Brakaifas, you know, because Osleta is actually, I can't remember if Brakaifas is in that group, but he probably is. But Osleta is actually featured very strongly, you know, in that group as they're singing. You know, and I said, hey, fella, that is the movie that taught me how to kiss.
But anyway, I mean, for me, the value in the play that you put together was to give context to the relationships that some of us know about, even though we're not there, and that continue up to today. And the other thing, it's not a complaint, but it's an observation, that we take the connections for granted sometimes, you know, but
and also, I mean, and I think what was beautiful also with that play, you know, you actually, I mean, that play captures Bloke's life, you know, when he's going through a very difficult, he has just left South Africa, gone to the, you know, I mean, he went via Botswana, Zambia, Tanganyika, which is now Tanzania, and then ended up in Britain. And when he's there, amen, he's going through a difficult time. So, and that is where even there are correspondence. But he's like going into bouts of, you know, being, I think, your regular South Africans, because I think South Africans sometimes...
when the going is okay, flamboyant. And then when
we forget, when that, you remember, but when days are dark, then you remember your friends.
Exactly.
You know, but yeah, and I think for me it was very telling and making me recognize an element in our maybe one can even call it collective personality, you know, and which, you know, if we begin to start telling stories that are reflective of our human condition, then we get to a position where we better understand who we are.
Absolutely. Well, what is it called? The process of healing.
The process of healing as well.
To acknowledge and know
absolutely,
first.
Absolutely.
But now, you mentioned 1975. You mentioned the movies.
Yeah. 1975, if I may add, was a turning point in my life in some way.
But I was just about to ask. That, you know, was it a time when you sort of discovered, besides kissing, that you are meant for this world of the arts, of dramatic performance.
That's it, yes.
What are the incidents or events that helped you discover your true self and what your calling was?
Man, 75 was basically a very definitive year, I think, in my life. because in 1975, then I saw a play for the first time when I saw Gibson Kent's How Long. And after seeing that, I couldn't stop mimicking what I saw in the play, you know, and it is definitive in that sense, because it was actually even in that year that I started even dabbling in, you know, or joining an amateur theater group in Jablani, you know. I had, I was 15 and I had elder cousins who were in their 18s, you know, late teens. And they used to hang out. In fact, some of them, I think maybe you probably know, Len Maseko.
Yeah.
Len Maseko was actually my cousin's friend.
Yes.
And Robert Magwaza, the photographer.
Yes.
They were my cousin's friends.
Yes.
And they used to hang out with him in the boys' room. You know, they were the elder teens, and now will come like as a like, hey, but do you remember when Africa did this? And do you remember when, you know, you know, and then one of them, hey, man. So that's how it started.
Yes.
76 was basically my first year that I performed on stage at Naledi Hall in January before the riots. You know, so basically 75 was definitive in that sense. And you know, I was saying even to somebody that I actually find myself as a connection between the theater of the 70s and the theater now.
Yeah.
You know.
But now I want to throw in a couple of things. Because we started talking about the theater, your play at the University of Joburg.
Yeah.
But television has been another stage for you.
Yes.
In the movies, you've also featured. So you've done the performing arts across the board, basically.
Absolutely.
You know? And typical question that people like myself would ask would be, which one do you prefer? I won't get there yet.
Okay.
I won't get there yet, but I'll talk about the evolution of it. That as you continued on the stage, what sustained you until the era of television? Because, you know, with the banning orders of the time, sometimes there would be work, sometimes there would not be work. The theaters were not that many. I don't think there are many even now. But you had to use, you know, school halls.
That's it.
As your theater and so. But just give me a sense of how it was like.
Oh man,
be an actor
you know, I think let's say from 75. And in fact, I must say this. You know, Kenny Majosi. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I do.
Kenny Majosi, Sikalo. That's my uncle.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, his mom and my father's mom, Sketla.
Yeah.
They are sisters.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even my first acting lesson, I get it from him.
Okay.
You know.
A very famous character.
Yeah. And very flamboyant.
Anybody who was called Kenny anywhere.
Yeah.
Hey, Majosi.
Kenny Majosi. You know.
So Majosi can be anyone.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
Kenny.
Yeah. You know. Yeah. And he gave me my first acting lesson. You know, I remember he said, he gave me a definition of drama. And he said, drama is the human condition in dialogue and action on stage. You know. And then he gave me... and he broke down the word actor as a second lesson. He said, actor. A stands for action. C stands for creativity. T stands for technique. O stands for observation. R stands for reaction. All these 5 things you use as an actor. And it is so true, you know what I mean? And somehow, you know, like there's this thing that, you know, you find younger actors today when they talk, you know, when I get into character, you know, I think that's the biggest BS ever.
Is it? Also, I mean, I heard you say the other day.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell me.
You know, there is no getting into character. Character is defined by actions.
Okay. Yeah. I'm with you. But
okay,
you continue.
Let me break it down to you in our situation.
That's right.
You are an interviewer. Did you have to get into character to be an interviewer?
No.
You did a series of actions. You know, you got here, maybe you did your own preparation.
Yes.
And then from there, when you get here, you did your intro. And then you started getting to, well, okay, let me start asking the questions. You know, and I'm the interviewee. You know, and did I have to get into character to be an interviewee? No. You know, and basically I was responding to, you know, the questions.
Yes.
as you are asking them.
Yes.
Now, for instance, if now I was going to reveal what kind of an interview I am, I would also maybe be like sitting, yeah. No. And that will be defined and said, oh, he was such a difficult interviewee.
Yes.
But basically it will be the attitude and the actions that I will follow as I continue with the interview. There is no getting into character. Writers write that the character does this and this and this and this. And you as an actor, what you do, you bring your whole life experience on top of the series of actions that the writers have put on the script.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this getting into character, I think somehow, in fact, what we are trying to say when we say we are getting into character is that we are focusing so much on the series of actions that we are going to be doing that in that focusing onto them, we almost forget everything.
Yeah.
That's what we are meaning. But there is no getting, you're just focusing on the series of things that you are going to be doing. And somehow in that kind of space, almost like you, as they say, you zone in.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that is not, it's not getting into character. It is just focus.
Well, I've learned something. I'm actually trying to think if I should act out what we just said, but we don't have time.
But for instance, if somebody make a transcription of this interview,
sure,
and give it to actors and say you'll play Bratim and you play Brazil, you know what I mean? They don't have to get into character. They've got to read. Oh, Bratim said this and Brazil said this. Yeah. That's what happened.
Okay. But it's very revealing and fascinating to know. But I was, to go back to my point that in the 70s and 80s, right?
Yes.
That, the evolution thereof, because television comes a bit later.
82. Yeah.
But in the meantime, you are learning all of these things, and you have to get work sometimes. Sometimes you don't get work, even if work is there, but you are not able to travel and present your play.
I must tell you this, that when we started, I think I was 75.
Yeah.
There was, we were doing this theater, township theater, where even when you stand, you have to have stage balance.
Yeah.
And that's where I started from.
Yes.
And then from then on, then I went to Gibson.
Yes.
My professional debut was in 1981 with Bragib. And 82 was then the beginning of television, TV2 and 3.
Yes.
Bragib had a feeling of that television was going to steal audiences from them. He decided to close shop. And when he decided to close shop, I wasn't keen to go into television because our PC, black consciousness. Yes. And I said, I'm not going to work with the system.
Because SABC was the system.
It was the system, exactly, And so 82, I kept on, I remember I actually was doing plays, maybe some, now it's TUT, Social Nguve, Technical.
Yeah, yes.
I did a couple of performances of Survival there. Logo Mamelodi High, like during that whole period, that's all I'm doing. I think until late 83, I actually got a job, Senton High Param as an order clerk.
Yeah.
So I worked for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then I learned thereafter that there were auditions of Woza Albert at the market. I went to the auditions, I think 85. And when I got the part, they said, when they said, no, we would like to use you, but you said you're working. And I said, when are you starting to rehearse? And they said, no, on Monday. I said, well, on Monday I'll be here. And on Monday, instead of going to work, I went to rehearsals. And as they say, the rest is history.
Yes.
So basically it was that survival. And then, from there, I think when my journey starts at the market in 85, up until now, it has just been that constant hustle. And what drove me throughout that whole period? Love. A love can be a nice fuel, and I think that's, I think loving the acting craft, and I remember after doing Woza Albert, my brother, I think I went to a couple of auditions and I wasn't cracking in it. I wasn't cracking them, and I was like, damn.
What was it doing to your self-esteem? I mean,
Hey, bro, I tell you, Fanad, one day, I mean, I remember, when you walk into an audition, and maybe you audition, and there are times when, as you finish, you didn't get it. And you walk out of that room, Fanad, feeling like this. Yeah. And I remember what I did was, when I came out of that audition, I went past a video shop, got 5 videos of, I don't know why I chose them, but I got 5 videos of Jack Nicholson. I got British Honor, Chinatown, The Shining, One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest, Terms of Endearment. And I sat and I watched those movies, one after the other. And after watching them, I realized, damn, I haven't started acting. Because Jack Nicholson, man, he goes to town. I mean, when you see him in what is this movie, A Few Good Men.
Yes.
You can't handle the truth.
I'm sitting here doing what you see in your white faggoty uniform.
Faggoty. And I realized that I hadn't started, but for me, that was a very interesting shift. Because now, when I observed now, I actually went again and watched and realized how, a person like Jack Nicholson, when they perform, they're almost performing with such ease. You don't see that they are acting. And then what is it that is making them to perform like that? Because now we tend to, when we perform, we...
No, but I would forgive myself if I were you for that.
Yeah.
Because that's what you knew. And in time you knew something else.
Exactly,
so,
yes.
It was a transition.
It was a learning curve. It was a learning curve.
Yeah, and up to now, when you watch those people, Jack Nicholson and many others like him, and post the era that you mentioned, same thing happens, so you started somewhere.
No, absolutely.
And that matters. That should count for a lot. And I suppose by the time you got to the opportunity in television, you were now getting it already.
But I think my transforming phase came when I did The Suit with Bunny Simon. Because now, and before I did The Suit, hey man, I remember overhearing a very careless remark by a white counterpart saying, black actors cannot play cerebral parts. And now that apartheid is over, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? What stories are they going to tell? And I thought that was such an undermining of us as human beings, but also the undermining of us as actors to say we cannot play cerebral parts. So when I got the Suit, I was like, now you show me if we can play
in your place,
exactly,
my man.
You know what I mean? And I remember, going in when I was playing that role, I went in there, bro, with vengeance. With really, it's just, show me if we cannot play cerebral. And because that short story, it is so finely written. I mean, Kentemba, the way he has captured that story, the way he has captured that story, he has captured, what do you call it, a character of a man. I mean, he has written like a black man almost like in the New Age, but a black man who wakes up in the morning, makes breakfast for his wife, and before, after making breakfast, he takes it to her in bed, But the poor thing, man, finds himself, as he leaves, you know what I mean? But also the way the guy handles it, he doesn't handle it with like, what? When's I when? And then a fagama could fix. No. He deals it with his, psychologically, And the way Kentemba has written it, I mean, there's a moment where they go out for a walk with the suit, and when he comes back, he says to her, put the fellow in the wardrobe, Tilly. And then Kentemba describes, then he pulls out a book on abnormal psychology.
Yeah, now tuba kangcono.
You know what I mean? But now that takes us into another realm.
Yeah.
And that is just shows that we can play cerebral parts. And besides that, we have writers who, when they write, and especially in novels, they actually are dealing with the mental state, with how characters are thinking and all that. And that is where, you know, we as actors can improve from and capture all these characters that are written, you know. And that is why I say there's no getting into character.
Sure.
The character is defined, in the, you know,
So-
on the page.
The suit leveled.
Oh, no,
playing
that
field
level,
for you, right?
the playing field for me.
So by then, I mean, by the time you get to television, and cinema is now accompanying television, I would like to believe
Right,
at the
yes,
same
yes,
time. Which
yes.
comes first? Is it television
I think
cinema?
it was cinema came first there were minor roles I think on television, you know, where I just got cameos.
Yes.
But the one major film was a Dry White Season.
Okay, yes.
You know, in 1988
Yeah.
when I met.
Is it Richard Harris or who?
No, not Richard Harris. In Dry White Season it was Donald Sutherland.
Oh, yes, yes.
Susan Sarandon. Brazeix Mukai was in there, and I had a wonderful time with Brazeix. Yeah, but you know, and stories now.
Stories and stories and more stories.
You know, and Brazeix. I mean, when we did that thing, I mean, I used to hang out with Brazeix, and you know, and we'll have drinks. You know, Brazeix used to like drinking screwdriver, you know, vodka and orange juice. And one day, as we are sitting and drinking, it actually transpires. I mean, he was like, really, like I said, hey, you know, I'm missing the love of my life. I'm missing the love of my life. And then he starts telling the story of the love of his life. And he's just telling the story. He's just telling the story. And I say, my brother, I think I know the person you're talking about. Didn't she, you know, conduct choirs? And Rossi said, hey boy, don't mess with me. No, it's just that I know Brazeix, a teacher, you know, who used to conduct choirs at my school. And you know, her surname was Modise. But we used to call him by her first name, because her first name was Dikeledi. And we used to call him, and I said, don't mess with me, boy! The love of his life was my standard 4 teacher.
Oh. Hey, man.
So, and you know, being with Brazeix also was like, it just took me also to another level. Yeah. And I think for me, it is because I had never, prior to that, and even now, now I've worked in that now. But prior to that, I had never worked with any of my predecessors.
Sure.
As I got professional. And being with Brazeix was, you know, almost getting a connection between my generation and the generation Yabo Brazeix. And I remember one time when we were sitting having drinks, I've got a Zimbabwean, you know, I go to the loo, I come back, and when I come back, she's not there. I said, hey, where's Petunia? And Brazeix says, Sello, don't say Petunia, say Petunia. Petunia, Petunia, Petunia. Say, where is Petunia? Where is Petunia? Where is Petunia? And in that moment, he gave me an acting lesson that you can have a line, where is Petunia? And
3 words, but you can
play with them, you know, using different emphasis.
Yes, yes.
And I was like, wow. And I think, you know, and this is something which I found that my generation actually never grew up, actually feeding off their predecessors.
Yeah.
Many of us, except like when we did Generations then, you know, but the theater is a better space.
I was about to say to you that, you know, the opportunity to spend time socially with a person like Brazeix was a sort of godsend.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, because you were getting mentoring.
Absolutely.
in a maybe an informal way. And there it is. I mean, the memory still lives with you.
Yeah.
The impact is still there with you.
Absolutely.
And I would like to believe that many parts of those interactions, as informal and probably short-lived as they were,
Yeah.
they then directed a major portion of your work going forward from that time.
Oh, no, absolutely, man. And in fact, if there's one thing that it did, it actually almost grounded me. That, you know what, I am not just emerging from nowhere. I'm actually riding on the shoulders of giants, you know. And what was interesting was also when I came back from the Zimbabwe, because we shot the movie in Zimbabwe, and I bumped into Brasol, Sol Rachil. And I said, hey, Brasol, man, I was in Zimbabwe and I met with Brazix. And Brasol says, hey, next time you see Zakes, ask him about the shoe that went amiss en route to Birdland. Now, there is something, and like that helped me to make even a very interesting connection with my playing my character in the suit. Here, Brasol is responding, when you meet Zakes, ask him about the shoe that went amiss en route to Birdland. Now, you see a person who is appreciative in how to use the English language. And now the shoe that went amiss en route to Birdland is a shoe where Brazil somewhere in Springs or Atteridgeville. And then now abakricheria Brazil so batla osala. Haron saloto batla osala ko koloi ya vaya ba tlogela stlhabo. So it's the shoe that went amiss en route to Birdland.
That's what I love about creative.
You know what I mean?
Artistic people.
And for me, Fana, it is, I think, you know, my generation missed out on the generation of Brazils and to see it at work and, you know, plying their trade. And then now, also now what is happening, I see it happening to my generation. You know what I mean? Yabo Brazil's generation, I understand that apartheid was at play. We are in control now. Why are we denying ourselves a nice, you know, passing of experiences and also the passing of the baton amongst ourselves?
It's wonderful, man, to talk to you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
I wish I could tell other stories of what used to happen at night at Liverpool Hillboy. So. But one thing I must say, maybe I should mention it. I never, ever forget. The fella Ransome Kuti story.
Exactly. Don't teach me nonsense. What do they call the Monday blues nights?
Exactly.
At Cotton Palm.
That's it. I suspect the DJ knew that if he wants to get us on stage, he must just play
that thing. Exactly.
And then we'll go
but those were lovely nights, man. And we used to have our own poetry slam with the, you know, Pitama Kurube, you know, heading that thing. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I remember actually, you know, prepared for one of those nights, I prepared a poem by Richard Harris. Richard Harris wrote a very beautiful poem called "There Are Too Many Saviors on My Cross." And I'm sure I can remember a few lines. I won't remember the whole of it. There are too many saviors on my cross, lending their blood to flood out my ballot box with needs of their own. Who put you there? Who told you that that was your place? You carry me secretly and naked in your hearts and clothe me publicly at hour, crying God is on our side, and yet I overtly cry, who is on mine? Who? Tell me, who? The antiquated Saxon sword, rusty in its cupboard of time, now rises. You gave it cause, bringing shame to the thorned head that once bled for your salvation. Your earth is partitioned, but in contrition it is a partition in your hearts that you must abolish. You nightly watchers of Gethsemane, who sat through my nightly trial, delivering me from evil. Now deserted, I watch you share your silver. Your purse, rich in hate, bleeds my veins of love, shattering my bones on the Boxside and the Shankill Road. But yeah, there was the appreciation.
This is your thing, but it's a good thing that live it and we live with it, and it's so internalized. It's wonderful to watch. It's wonderful to observe.
Thank you, man.
And as you were, given the rendition of the poem, honestly, I paid attention and I got the message. Yeah, so the youth, with all the energy, the verve, the excitement, you're still talking about the experience that the older generation or the more experienced people may have, and the exchange of energy and experience
exactly.
would be of great benefit.
Man, I'm an ardent football fan, and you know, for instance, I'm an Arsenal fan, and we're doing good.
Yeah,
we're doing good.
I was telling somebody, I said, no, can you make sure that you take a picture of this because it's not going to last for long?
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter to me. We're number one in the first few games. That's it. History will remember that.
And we've got a young squad, but that young squad, in order to really come, to them, it had to play with experience. It played with your Özil, at some point, you know what I mean? And I think also even with who's that Lacazette, you know what I mean? And also with now we've got Jesus, and I think when Jesus came in and, those young boys, they just thought, wow, here's, he's just a few years old. But, they say you may not teach an old dog new tricks, but an old dog can teach you some tricks, you know what I mean? And I think that's something that and like as I was saying, that we are so focused on trying to capture what youth does, we forget that this youth one day in itself is going to reach its twilight years.
Yes.
And when it reaches its twilight, are you going now to push it aside and say this?
I don't know. Let me just throw something here into the works, and I want your view on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is at the same time of change in a political sense, where we expect socio-cultural expression to take root the way we want it to be.
Yeah.
We unfortunately do it at the same time as being commercial and emphasize the commercial side.
Yeah.
Right? And the commercial is more appealing. So everything is quick buck, get money, blah, blah, blah. Now.
But to our detriment.
The transformation, the change agenda,
but we are doing
awareness.
We are doing it to our detriment. Yeah. And why I say we are doing it to our detriment, because, we got to have the commercial side. And we got to have the substantial side. And, I look at, for instance, things like, I read the book, The Super Afrikaner, recently. And you look at how the Afrikaner Bond was actually established as a cultural organization. And you look at how, for instance, they sort of upheld the Afrikaans culture in all its dynamism. You know what I mean? And also in how it should be appreciated. We haven't created that for ourselves.
And there's no one stopping us.
There's no one stopping us.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I think for me, and that is when I look at the fact that we are actually holding positions of power, even in the institutions that, were left by the Afrikaners. You know what I mean? Somehow we are not actually elevating our own culture to that space where it should be appreciated. And every time when we want to appreciate ourselves and that this is our culture, it's Mashay scoop. And that is wrong. It is not it. You know what I mean? We are not all about scoop. And if ever again also the places of our entertainment should all be about scoop.
And again, the example you gave using the football analogy, something crossed my mind. I was thinking, Michael Jackson, as much as he was a pop icon,
that's it,
right, worked with an established jazz legend to take his career to another level. Right? And many people may not know, maybe those who may not know, that, Quincy Jones coming from a serious jazz background, and then working with Michael Jackson, they created something else.
Absolutely.
That was to the power of 4, 5, 6.
And now, exactly. And you look at that now, look at what experience can do, and that's why, I say that I'm actually, being a link of the old order and the new order. Because there's one thing about look at what Brahu used to do. And his collaborations.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
and the thing is, I guess maybe in the corporate world, you can play this whole ageism, but not in the entertainment space.
Yeah.
Not in the entertainment space, because in the entertainment space, there is something about an artist that, you know, I think a lot of people don't appreciate, but it is actually at the core of an artist. And that is, an artist functions with a childlike spirit.
Need a lot of love.
Yes.
Got to give a lot of love.
Exactly.
Yeah. Care.
You know,
and
and
be
you
attentive.
look at, and also you got to be special, you know, I mean, to be an artist. No, not everybody becomes an artist.
Well, I
But,
mean,
you know,
because sometimes when things don't go right, you've got to have the resilience
exactly.
to hang in there, you know, and continue with it. I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you look, I mean, I used to, you know, like Brahu used to be a marvel for me to watch as a, you know, when he performs. And that's why I say artists, I mean, are special human beings. I mean, who can do one thing over and over again, but every time they do it, it's like they're doing it for the first time.
Yeah, the enthusiasm.
The enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I mean, when you saw Brahu do Stimel,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
I don't know how many times he's done it, but when you watch him do it, it's like he's doing it for the very first time.
Absolutely.
Hey, man,
Absolutely.
you got to be special.
Absolutely. I agree. And maybe that's why you don't get to my question about television that much.
Okay.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I'll tell you because see, in a television space, you'll talk about the work and how how it's done. But there are things like contracts there, for instance.
Yes.
There are call-out fees. You know, I imagine that those are some of the things that get in the way of the work of the artists, the actors, right? On one hand, you've got to do the work that you do. On the other hand, you're thinking, hey, you know, my call-out fee, this, that, and the other.
You know, television actually came as a shocker to me. And I think, or in fact, let me say the popularity that television engendered. Bro, in Chaplin Knockout, I wasn't, looking forward to it. But here's one thing that used to affect me, you know, and especially with the fame that came with television. I used to look at how people appreciated me, and I would ask myself, but what am I giving them? And when you have grown, like I said, I couldn't go into television at one stage because of my politics. And having grown up with black consciousness, with the PAC, Africanist awareness, and then now you come into this space and it's happening at the transitional time of our lives. But as we're doing it, we are not even really going to that very core that is about us. That affected me. And the awareness of it all for me was even, just realizing also, I think at when, for instance, the character of my father was killed, that affected me.
The character of your father
in generations.
Okay, yes.
In generations, when the character was killed.
Yes.
That affected me. Because at that time, I could see that, you know what, here is an image that should be projected on screens all the time of showing intergenerational conversations.
Yeah.
And now you are, you're denying the society that.
Yes.
And you are giving them a young person who's now taking charge.
As if there was never,
as if there was never
an older mentor or somebody who was helping to do stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
And basically, we started creating a child-headed society.
Okay. I get what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that for me...
And maybe that's why sometimes it feels like we behave like a child-headed society.
No, we are. Yeah. Because there is no control that is happening basically like at the top. And the conversation let me say the societal conversation has not been guided in different stages. What the conversation that has been predominant has been the youthful conversation. And parents are sitting on the side as if like they are non-existent. And whereas, and again, that even, becomes even evident in our even in the stories that we tell. And I think the whole thing also is like the stories that we tell are stories that are showing our debasement. I'm working at the present moment on adapting The Land Is Ours, the Tembeka Ncukaitobi's book.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you
Sorry,
look at
yeah.
Tembeka Ncukaitobi. And Tembeka has captured the lives of the very first black lawyers that we had. And sometimes, and we don't realize that we have that rich heritage of intellectualism, and this is something that, for instance, now we actually have got to get into that space of actually saying, look at where we come from. And also, we also even created a foundation. These first black lawyers created a foundation for the present constitution. And the way black people are so afraid of law, because when we understood law was always against us. And, but look at how the intellectuals of the early 20th and late 19th century, black intellectuals, how they actually used the law to try and fight for land. You know what I mean? And which means we actually are a society or a nation that is steeped with, in using law and constitutionalism. And we got to now make law accessible to the ordinary person and make them realize that, the law can also work for you.
Tell me about your efforts to adapt Ncukaitobi's book.
Yes.
The Law Is Ours. How far are you progressing? What's happening there?
Well,
what is your intention ultimately?
Well, at the moment, my intention is to actually, interpret it in a two-pronged way. One, as a docuseries. It's going to be a 6-part docuseries, focusing on the very first black lawyers, but also capturing how we lost the land, and I mean, this book basically is, I was, defining it and saying that, at a time when almost, there was silence, and a silence that is actually covered by pain, a young black lawyer, raises from the ashes of that silence, a cry for land, and which is, the land is ours. And in by going through that, how we lost the land and, and how we even lost the cattle, it actually gives us a sense of why we are what we are today. What we don't realize is that the taking of land from black people actually turned them into tenants in their own country. And we, as black people, we never had any possession of anything. And sometimes when you see us being destructive to property, we never had it. We never had it. I remember even in the 76 when we were going, I was only 16 years old, but as we're destroying things, it was like, we don't own anything. And even now, a lot of people, we don't actually have a sense of ownership.
Yes.
And even beyond that, a sense of belonging.
You make a good point.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, one of the outcomes of the story of land dispossession was exactly that. When you force people into migratory labor system, you destroy their rootedness.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have rootedness, then where do you belong?
And also, and the whole thing, what we don't realize, how systematic it was. Because now, with the discovery of the diamonds and gold, then black men were needed as labor on the mines. And the amazing thing about how even our plight, the plight of mine workers was raised by a woman called Alice Kinloch. Alice Kinloch was married to a gentleman of Scottish origin, but he's African, South African. And she ended up going to the UK. And when she goes to the UK, that's when she meets up with a black lawyer called Sylvester Williams, who became the first black lawyer to be accepted at the Cape Bar in 1902. But Alice Kinloch was the one who raised alarm of the conditions of mine workers in Kimberley. But just showing the degradation that African people were going in or were subjected to because of the migrant labor system. Sure. And also how, for instance, the whole, colonialization. And in fact, they meet the very first Pan-Africanist Congress that was held in 1900 in London. So you see how, for instance, now our struggle actually, when it starts to happen, it actually starts, in 1903. Not that we should ignore the frontier wars, which were the wars of like complete and absolute dispossession of land.
Well, I'm going to stay with this for a moment.
Okay.
Because that's where you are immersed.
Okay.
But I'm bringing in your personal life into the story. How's Sis Pearl doing?
Sis Pearl is fine. There, you got me there. It's
I'll tell you why I'm asking it.
Okay. Tell me that. Maybe you listen my response.
I hope so. When we were at the UJ, and you were presenting your play there, Modise and Langston Hughes. I observed how she put stuff together and made things happen, and you were focused on the work that you do.
I
could see that my brother and friend here is quite chilled, is quite relaxed, because normally when you have a project of that nature and in your line of work, you will worry about many other details. Now you don't have to. You are focused on what Sello is all about. But you tell me. Those are my observations.
Bratim, one thing I can tell you is that I think meeting up with that lady, hey man, I'm going into my sunset very nice. I'm really, like when they say when you're walking into the sunset, or making happy ever after, I feel it's like that. And, I always boast or make fun of the fact that when I started in 81, when I debuted, my acting career, she was being conceived.
More or less like your career.
Exactly. So in one way, it's like her growing up was actually growing up to actually come and take care, of this. And but as a, she's a man. Kenny goes, I bump into him at the Maake and he says to me, you're in Brazil. Why is he in Brazil? I mean, if when love, there's hope for us. There's hope for us. And I think, it is just that. And I think I always say, what I know, because I'm in my 60s. So I'm Sasa material. So basically, and all I'm just praying, is that, hey man, wait a minute. Just another 20.
Yes.
Enjoy this. Just 20 or learn a bit 60.
Exactly.
That's
right. How do you get to that?
Yeah, how do I get a bit? This way, But it's an amazing combination, a work relationship and beyond work relationship, just on sentimental, on Cupid's side. Leonide is just there. It is a blessing, and I thank God for it.
It must be, energizing you to chase whatever projects you want to
absolutely,
chase.
Man. I mean, she has just, my bro, man, just freed. Whatever visions that I've had. I've had a dream of setting up a performing arts academy as far back as, like in the, early 200s. Been talking about it, but now it is actually beginning to manifest. a lot of things that in fact, I think also been something about me when it comes to how I look at my work and how I interpret it, and the feeling that I'm the link between the 70s and the present, and also even just my understanding of the acting craft. It is, everything is just blooming.
I don't want to talk too much about other things in the past, relationship wise and so on, because for purposes of what we're talking about, I can't see what value we'll be adding to that. Except to conclude on this note by asking you a question: if, given that there's a sort of breakdown of the linkages between the older and the new emerging people, there are lessons in life that you have learned.
Yeah,
we've given us a hint of how and where you learned them, but if there are specific things that, using this opportunity of our conversation, you would share with younger people, whether they are in the arts or not, what are the life lessons that you think matter and you are willing to give or share now?
There's I think, first production that I directed at the Market in 1997. I wrote in the director's note that apartheid is a lie. And if ever you've grown in a lie all your life, how do you now begin to give a very truthful performance? And when I started directing, I was actually working on that. How do we find our own truth in telling our own stories? And also, I think the importance of us knowing and understanding our truth went to, I think it was 2001, and I was directing Woza Albert for the 25th anniversary of the Market. And I auditioned a young man who had just graduated from TUT. And I remember when he stood in front of me and he opened his mouth, I could hear the Model C accent, and I reacted to it. I said, these black people are just trying to be white. That was my reaction. And I remember, I never really gave him the time of day in that audition. But it so happens that I go to the UK, and one day I'm just sitting and my mind is, how the mind start analyzing or looking back. And that situation comes back into my view. And as it plays out, I realized, damn. And I went, F this, F this, F this, F this. Yo. Hey, I cheated that boy. And I cheated him because it was because of my limitation at that time. With his Model C accent and everything, I should have said, okay, now let's have a conversation. Who are you? Where do you come from? What's your background? What is it that you understand? And the thing is, in order to do things to the best of your ability, you got to permit yourself what you know. As an actor, you have to permit yourself what you know. And most of the time what you see with the younger actors, they are trying to reinvent themselves. How do you reinvent yourself? How do you reinvent the human condition, human behavior? It is just there. That is where even the first acting lesson that I got, O standing for observation. The most important thing that an actor has got to learn is observe life. Observe life. Observe life outside, everybody, life around you, but also observe life internally. That is, observe yourself. Observe yourself when you are feeling emotions. When you are feeling down, oh, okay, so this is how I feel. Because all we are a sum total of sensations and emotional experiences. And as actors, like a craftsman or a pianist who learns his instrument and knows how to play it even in the dark and without looking at it. You as an actor, you've got to understand yourself so well that you don't have to say, I need 5 minutes to get into character. No. You got to be a master of your craft. On demand, you execute. But how can you do that if ever you haven't went through the process of learning how to recall? Because all we're doing is we are just recalling emotions that we have learned. So, most importantly to actors, don't try to invent yourself. Learn to understand the makeup of the human condition, especially as an actor. Learn to know the emotional sensations. And for me, it's like each and every emotion has got its own breath. If I'm going to be nervous now, it's going to, yes, Prati. It's going to show itself in the breath. So those are the little things that as an actor you have to learn. Beautiful thing is like at funerals for me, when you find somebody is speaking about the deceased, and they'll be telling stories that are like hilarious, and they are actually even just maybe enjoying, telling these stories about the deceased. And they come to a moment and they say, I don't want to cry. Change of breath. So an actor has got to learn in all these dynamics of how to use these things on demand when they're needed. So that's all they've got to do. Permit yourself what you know.
Sello Maake Kancube, Auti Falme, Bra Falme.
Thank you, Prachi.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And we are very proud of the work you've done.
No, thank you.
And the body of work is a lot. I did not even want to bother.
I think the conversation was just lovely.
I mean, we'll have to spend several days doing that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your time and also your insights. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you,
everything
Prachi.
of the best to you.
Thank you, my bro.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, these are the people who give. He spoke about character on stage, character on screen, and so on. But they are examples of what I would call, or the definition of the South African character. It includes people like himself because they define it, whether it be in the arts or it be in business, it be in politics. All of the people who move the needle, as I like to say, are the ones who shape who we become. Thank you for watching. Till next time.